And joining us now to discuss the House resolutions reining in California's plan to end the sale of gasoline-only vehicles by 2035 is Lauren Fix. She's an automotive industry expert with Car Coach Reports. Good to see you, Lauren. Thanks for joining us. At issue here is the federal legislator overruling the state automotive and transportation laws. So what are your thoughts with this?
Okay, there's a lot going on, and it is pretty intense. So first off, when they made the rules, it was a carve-out that was presented by way long time ago for California because of the Clean Air Act. Well, then President Obama gave California even more powers, and of course, they started mandating electric vehicles. And then on top of that, President Biden gave them even more powers. Now, when President Trump was in office on his first term, he tried to remove that, but it was too late when he really actually started doing that, too late in his term. So this time, first time in right away, he has Lee Zeldin out there. They put up what's called a CRA, which is a Congressional Review Act. And that's how they would remove this law, the powers for the California Air Resources Board that your host was talking about. And one of the things that's really important to note is when California makes a rule, usually you go, well, that's California. I live in Rhode Island or I live in Minnesota and it doesn't faze me at all. But the fact is it does, because no car company is going to produce one car for the entire country. They're going to produce a car for the entire of North America. Typically that's Canada and the US. Mexico's got slightly different rules, but pretty much along those same lines. And so that would be a problem when one state is now calling the shots for all 49. And actually that's unconstitutional. So President Trump has taken it to the House. They passed it, and then I was really glad to see that. Went to the Senate. Now what we're watching is the parliamentarian who makes the rules said, well, what you sent over here, we can't undo because it's against the rules. It's a lot of official jargon. What's really going to happen is, and they did this yesterday, and now that they're off for the rest of the weekend, but yesterday they voted and bipartisan, which is really good because it affects a lot of states, a lot of jobs, a lot of manufacturing. They voted to turn it from a CRA to a rules, that make it a rules package, which has now been passed. This is a chance for us to eliminate the California Resources Board power, take away their carve out and the California waiver, which is where the mandate lives, and the $7,500 tax credit. So next week is going to be a very interesting week.
Yeah, it's almost like there's two things happening at the same time. There's a huge impact on the automotive and logistical industry, but then there's also this more constitutional thing happening, whereas who gets to set the law? Is it bottom up or is it top down? You know, to put the size and importance of California into perspective, Governor Newsom, who is now reaching his term limits, announced recently that California surpassed Japan in GDP. So California is the fourth largest economy behind U.S., China, and Germany. And as you noted, when California moves, about a dozen other states follow closely, as does Canada. So, you know, what is the future of the combustion engine for California and potentially the rest of the country? California clearly is planning to fight back. So what will happen next?
Well, 17 states do follow what California overall has to say, and that's like New York and Connecticut, the typical states that you would expect would follow suit. And so what's most likely to happen is I believe the Senate will pass this. This affects a lot of candidates who are up for re-election, and they don't want to tell their constituents, oh, by the way, we voted against your jobs, or we voted against the future of the auto industry, because the auto industry is actually very local. You look at your local dealers that you drive by, pick a brand, any brand, and they hire local. They hire for accounting and for marketing and jobs at the dealership, collision, parts, service, sales. So when you start looking at all of this, you start realizing there's a lot of jobs. And next time your soccer team wants a jersey, you typically go to the local dealer and say, hey, my kid's got on a team, could you support us? And they will. But if you take away those dealerships or their ability to make profits, that's going to really hurt local communities. So I think this will pass. Once that happens, President Trump has a plan that he has been working on, as well as Lee Zeldin and Sean Duffy, to remove the power of the California Air Resources Board. So if California says, based on, again, being quite a large GDP, saying, hey, we're going to go electric anyhow, I have a gut feeling that the next governor is not going to be anywhere near Gavin Newsom, because he has really destroyed the state. Many people that voted for him now realize that. And I think that whoever might be next, whether it be Steve Hilton or whomever, could be even Kamala Harris. But we're hoping that whoever it is does not continue with this push for electric vehicles, because they already have problems with brownouts and they don't have the power. But one thing I do want to qualify for your listeners, and I don't think people realize this, all the electric vehicles that are made by literally every brand, they take a loss. And if the manufacturers take a loss on it, they have to make up that difference selling other product they make a profit on. And that would be pickup trucks and SUVs. And that's why you're seeing a lot of truck prices and a lot of car prices being so expensive. For example, I looked at a vehicle, I won't say which brand, but they sent me a vehicle to review, and it was exactly the same as the one from 2022, but it was $20,000 more. So that's how they're trying to make up the difference. Figure, oh, we'll just charge 20 grand more for each vehicle. Well, those vehicles are sitting on the lots. And those are the ones they, in the past, weren't discounting, and now they are. So there are some deals out there if you're looking to buy a vehicle. So when the tariffs come in, and of course, at the same time as this CRA and this passing of this legislation, what'll happen is car makers can then make vehicles they make a profit on. So you can see how the car makers are really have their sights set on removing the power from California, because then they can start making some money on vehicles again.
You bring up a fascinating point about the costing structure that the automakers have to do to move product while also navigating the legislative environment. It seems like the other piece of this was just what should the fees be on EVs. There's still a $7,500 federal tax credit, and a new EV tax has just been put in place. Road repairs are funded through tax on gas and diesel, and according to the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, EV drivers are getting around that because, of course, they don't buy gas. But an EV advocacy group says that the electrification from the Electrification Coalition, they say that the $250 tax isn't fair because the average gas-powered credit is only about $88 a year. So I guess it's small potatoes when you talk about a $20,000 increase on the truck you want to buy. But what do you expect to see on these fees for buying EVs?
Well, there's been a lot of legislation going across the board as well. So some states like Oregon and Washington and even Texas charge electric cars based on the mile. Some also charge when you register the vehicle, they could charge $2,500 for the life of the vehicle. They might charge on an annual basis. Every state has their own Department of Transportation regulations in order to cover some of the costs. Because you have to remember, these electric vehicles are heavier. Typically not twice as heavy, but when you're looking at like a Hummer EV, you're talking about 10,000 pounds. Your average vehicle on the road is somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 pounds. So that extra weight on the roadway is like a tractor trailer. And what happens is it destroys roads and bridges, it breaks down on the asphalt, and they have to make up that difference to do the repairs. So that's why the fees are there. So there's just been some new legislation to remove the $250 fee you were talking about and make it $40 annually. Again, it depends how many miles you drive. I think what's going to happen in the end, when you really look at how this breaks down, is you're going to see a balance of gas, hybrid, and electric vehicles. I think some states will raise their overall fees for annual registration. Some will have by-the-mile fees. Again, it depends who you put in office. So there really is a difference on, what you pay and what you don't pay. But there really is no way around that because they do have to pay for the roads and bridges. I will tell you that I live in New York State, and all of the money they collect from the gasoline taxes that are supposed to go into the roads and bridges don't. They go into the general fund, and then they're distributed from there. So if the roads and bridges are not great in your area, such as Michigan or New York and a bunch of other states, it's probably because the money goes into the general fund. It doesn't go into the roads and bridges, which is part of the problem. And there's all kinds of bridges that need repair.
Lauren Fix, so much to look out for with transportation and logistics. We didn't even get into some of Bezos's new light electrified trucks that are challenging Elon Musk's Tesla. We'll have to have you back soon so that we can dig into all that. Really appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you.
If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our car review channel, Car Smarts. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want even more content, check out the links in the description. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.